our Learn by Design. We're designing a robot. This is tutorial 2. So the other day we created our sketch, and here it is. If we click on the document, we can open it up. And within it, just to highlight, in our feature tree, we set some variables. So you'll have to watch that video to see the variables. And we created a sketch. And if I double click that, N, you can see we have our robot. We've got our dimensions for our sketch, and everything is fully constrained. So we're in good shape. So we want to make some actual parts now. There's a few ways that we can do this. I'm going to show a way, and what I want you to do is just watch, and I'll show you the 2 different ways, and then I want you to rewind and do them. So one way is the extrude. So these tools here allow us to take a sketch and create a 3-dimensional object from it. And each one, when you hold your mouse over, it shows you the keyboard shortcut, and it also shows you some information about how to do it. So the extrude, you have some options in here. And again, I'm just going to demonstrate first. So you have some options to make a solid object or a surface. And most of the time, we're going to stick with solid objects. So you want to make sure that you understand the difference. And in the Learning Center, there are tutorials, and in class, we're going to go through those tutorials. You want to make sure that you understand these things. Now, this is red because it doesn't have enough information to actually make an extrusion. So the one thing is that you can select things. So as you can see, I can zoom in and I can select an object, and that can extrude it. And when you extrude, you have some options. You can create a new object. You can add if you already have an object, which we don't. You could remove. So let's say I had a rectangle and then I put a circle on the sketch. I could remove where the circle is, and an intersection. So an object that's created from 2 separate objects that intersect. So I select the sketch, and I can select multiple sketches, and you can see this becomes one solid object. That's not what I want to do. I want separate objects here. We also have this. So how this works, let me just demonstrate. I'm just going to move so that you can kind of see this a bit better. So our sketch is on the top plane, and right now the blind means that we are blindly going to go in one direction, and in this case it's going up. So I can change the direction, and you can see the object is now going down. So I can change the direction. I can also change. So blind, if I just want, I know that this is going to be a 2-inch high, that's when I would use that. Up to next is really, really useful when you have multiple objects and stuff, and it's like, I want to go to the next thing. That allows you to do that. Up to a separate face. So again, if there were multiple objects, I could specify what face I want to go to, up to a certain part, up to a point, or through all. Now, through all is really useful for holes. So if I'm going to use the remove function and do holes, that's a really useful way to do it, because that goes through all the object instead of just a set distance. So when you do a hole, I typically do that because that way, if I decide, oh, I'm going to make that material a bit bigger, I don't want to have to go in and change all my holes afterwards. If I use through all, it will just automatically adjust. So if I select blind, I can do that. You'll notice that I can set the depth. So for this, we're going to use 2x1 square tubing, so 2 inches. You also have the option of making it symmetric. So you can see with symmetric, the top plane is now going to be halfway, and it's extruding it in equal directions both ways. So these are all useful ways to do it. You can use things like the draft. So if you can see how this is no longer a perfect rectangle, and I'll do a really big number so that you can see. So it's actually expanding it. We rarely use that, but it's nice to know that it's an option. And you can also select a second end position. So maybe I want to go 2 inches that direction and a different distance in that direction, those are all options. So it's really important to understand the options and play with it with just some standard sketches and stuff. And if I click that, you can see I now have a part, and down here where there's parts, there's my part that I've just created. And I can turn the eye feature on and off, so I can hide it if I don't want to see it. I can click the eye to make it visible again. And that's the part. If I modified that extrude, change the dimensions, you can see it automatically modifies. And that's really powerful. If I changed my sketch, it would automatically change. Now you can see the sketch is now hidden. And if I hold my mouse over it, I can see it's still there. This little eye icon allows me to show it again so that I can edit it. Now, I'm just going to delete that extrude because that is number one way to do it. We use the extrude button quite a bit, so it's really useful to know. Now, the reason we're doing this differently is we want to design a robot, and speed is of the essence. So what we are going to do is we are going to create, we're going to use something called a feature script. And again, under search tools, if you just type add, you can see there's add custom features. So when you do add custom features, you can look up different feature scripts, and we are going to select other documents, and we are going to look up a particular one called tube converter. So if I just type tube converter, and spelling matters, so that is not the one. I'm going to just change that. So let's type Julia's. Julia's has made a whole bunch of feature scripts. So if we type Julia's, there's Julia's feature scripts. And if we have a look at this, we can see there's all kinds of feature scripts in here. And there is tube converter. So Julia's feature scripts is what we want to search for. And then we'll select tube converter. And when you click it, it's going to add it to the toolbar, and we can just close that up. And on our toolbar now, you should see there's tube converter. So tube converter is a really handy tool. And what we can, or I don't want tube converter, I want Extrude Individual. I'm sorry, we're going to use tube converter later, so just hold on to it. But what we're going to do, I apologize, Extrude Individual. So go back to add custom feature scripts and just type again Julia, Julia', Julia's. And Julia's feature script should pop up, and Extrude Individual. My mistake. So that's added to our toolbar. On our toolbar now, we can go to Extrude Individual. And what we can do, there it is. I've got quite a few in here. This is really powerful. So we are going to select 2 inches. We're going to select blind. And what we're going to do is we're going to select that rectangle, and that rectangle, and that rectangle. And just like that, we now have 4 parts, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. And that was really, really quick. So I can hide the different parts and stuff. So that is the kind of thing that we want to be able to do. I can do the exact same thing with Extrude. The problem is that when I do Extrude, I would need to do 4 separate extrudes so I could force it to be 4 separate parts. Extrude Individual saves me time. So that's the goal that I want to be able to do. So that's the option. Rewind and use the Extrude Individual to get 4 parts. Once we have our 4 parts, you can see I can click those 4 parts, and I can now right-click, and I can go to Properties. And with the parts, I can set my name. So I can set, all of these are part of my drivetrain. I can set my description, 1 inch by 2 inch square tubing. I can set my part number. So how the part number works, IBM TBA 00, sorry, IBM TBP. So IBM, those are my initials. You want to replace that with your initials. TD is the name of the part. I'm just using Tech Design as my initials, but whatever you decide to use, you can use. And P indicates these are parts. So 00 indicates that they're part of this. Actually, we're going to change it to 01 because eventually we're going to move this out of our full robot and into just the drivetrain. So that's going to be part of our drivetrain mechanism. So -0. And what we can do now is I can select the first one and just add a 1, the second one, add a 2, the third one, add a 3, the fourth one, add a 4. So I can do that. And there's just looking through everything else. I'm going to save that. And you can see all of these rails are now positioned. If I highlight a rail, so I can see that one's at the back. So I'm just going to right click and add the word back. This one, if I look, so this is my, so that's on my left side. This piece is on the right side. And that leaves the last one has got to be on the front. So I've got names for all of them. They're all part numbers. If I highlight all of them, I can right click. I can choose assign material. And we use aluminum. We use aluminum 6061. We'll talk about different types of aluminum and stuff in the course. But I don't stress too much about it. The key reason is that now I can click over here, and because I've set the material, I can actually see this is going to cost or weigh 22 pounds, which is really heavy for a drivetrain. But you got to remember, right now these are solid pieces. In our next tutorial, we're gonna in a later tutorial, we're gonna make them into actually square tubing. So we're gonna hollow them out, but that will be for later. So I've got my material. If you want, you can change your appearance. So if you're like, I want this to have a metal look, you can set the metal look. If you want it to be bright pink, you can do that. So there we have our parts. And right now, we're in good shape. We're going to rename our part studio. And I'm just going to name it drivetrain tubing, rails, whatever, just so it's easy to see what the names of the parts are. So that is the end of this tutorial. We have 4 parts. Remember, we could use the extrude. We could add a custom feature, in which case we added Extrude Individual, which allowed us to extrude those parts. And we're good to go.